Durjoy, there was a time not long back when people used to read books and authors were like the hidden entities behind a book. So you just knew the name, but you never saw the author, you never spoke to him, you didn't ever get to meet him. And today, here's you, who is like a young star. I'm sure you must have been offered roles for some movies or the other, writing romances, and people love you as much as they love the books that you write, and they get to see you and meet you all the time. So, what do you have to say about that? How does it make you feel? Do you think it takes away a lot of time from you, or do you enjoy that part of it?
For the longest, I used to be very awkward about it, and even now, I feel a little overwhelmed at times. I remember the first book launch that I did in Bangalore, and there were a lot of people there, and they started shouting out, and I got so overwhelmed that the guy at the counter came and said that, "Are you okay? Do you do?" Yeah, I was not expecting that kind of a reception because I have obsessed and stalked a lot of authors that I've loved, but I would have never reacted like that. Like I would have like sat down and been a little shy about it. But all these guys professing their love for an author itself is a very good concept because in India we do not have like legitimate fanboyism or fangirlism when it comes to books. Like there's no niche writing in India where just the people who read that niche can make it into a bestseller. So seeing that kind of a response for a writer and for a new book was like it was very heartening for me. So yeah.
And is that what made you decide to just go along that line of writing and write romantic books? And or did you always have it in mind that you're going to be a romance writer?
Actually, I did my first book launch when my sixth book came out. So
Oh wow!
before that, I did absolutely no publicity or marketing of my books because I was a student most of the time and I did not have the money to do anything of that sort. But as far as romance is concerned, I have not grown up reading romances. I have grown up reading all kinds of thrillers, fantasy, literary books, but no romances. So when I was writing, I just wrote about what I knew, and it was after the book came out and people were reading it that it was first tagged as chick lit, but it was not a girl writing it, so it was called lad lit. Then this whole terminology went out of fashion. People started calling it young adult, but then my characters were a little older, so they started tagging it under romance, but there were no men writing romance. So it's always changed, but I just write whatever stories come into my head. I don't think that just because I'm tagged as a romance writer there has to be a certain percentage of romance in my books. I just write whatever comes to my head.
And while the media was making up its mind what to call your stories, you just kept writing, writing, writing. You were very young when your first book came out. How old were you, Durja?
I started writing my first book when I was 2021. It got published when I just turned 22.
And that's how many years ago?
That is 8 years ago.
8 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
And you got married pretty young. You
Yeah.
got married this year in
Yeah,
February
I did.
and broke a million hearts, I believe. Your marriage itself was a very interesting, your proposal, the way you proposed to your wife, Avantika. You made it such a public matter and involved so many people, even all the broken-hearted girls all out there were kind of assisting you in your proposal. How did you get that very filmy idea?
Actually, it was because Avantika has lived for 10 years, outside India now, and a lot of her friends are from other nationalities, and there it's very popular for a guy to go down on a knee and propose. In India, it's not so much. It's already the parents have talked and you're getting married. The proposal does not really hold any waters. But she always wanted something like that, and our marriage date was coming closer, and I wanted to do something like really small but sweet. And my Instagram profile had like only 20-30,000 followers, so I thought I'll just and Instagram is a very positive social media in that sense, so I just wanted to restrict it to that. But when I uploaded the first post on Instagram, and a lot of people started coming in and participating in a very positive way, so they said, why don't you share it on Twitter and Facebook as well? She'll like it. So that's what I did, and suddenly it blew up. Like within like 15 minutes of
Oh, yes, we were watching all that
yeah,
happen.
so it came as a shock to me as well. Like even when Avantika landed and she switched on her phone crashed. She could not see anything. So I had to explain it to her that what is exactly happening,
Yeah.
because like nothing. Like even my sister, she called me the next day and said that who's doing your PR, And I was like, this is
It was
not.
but it
Yeah.
was a wonderful move, and the way it happened,
Yeah.
it was such a sudden spurt,
And
and it was all
especially when
over.
Twitter
Yeah.
is mostly negative,
Hmm.
it something so positive happened. Like it was very nice for me as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
You must have a great insight into the minds of youngsters. And I like the way you listened to them when they told you how to propose and get onto Twitter and do that. So it seems to be like a two-way interaction where you were listening to your readers and your readers are loving to read you. Having that wonderful insight, what do you think really works for the youngsters today?
I think telling them a relatable story uh, is what works for them. Like if you put a story in their world, they'll connect to it. Like I have grown up reading Western authors, so there used to be certain things that I couldn't connect with. Now it might not be that much of a difference since our lifestyle is almost aping theirs. But just the fact that somebody Indian is the protagonist of the book, even that makes a
That
lot
makes
of
a difference.
that makes a lot of difference because you immediately identify with the kind of family it comes from, the kind of social structures that exist. So if you tell stories that are relatable and rooted in reality, I think they connect with it.
Yeah.
So and that's very important for a lot of young people who have just started reading
Yeah.
or just have started reading Indian authors. To make that connect is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you do write a lot of risque stuff. You do, so that is also a reason for your popularity, is it?
I see. It's always a double-edged sword because a lot of people tell me that because you write so many intimate scenes or you used to write so many intimate scenes, that is why your books sell. But after my sixth or the seventh book, I stopped writing that because a lot of people started telling me that because you write this, I will not buy your book.
Yeah.
So, so I've stopped
That's
it
true.
because nobody says that why don't you write it. A lot of people come up and say why do you write it. It's
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I've resorted to not delving into
Yeah.
those intimate scenes. It happens. It's one sentence and over.
Yeah.
So
Oh, well, so long as it is an intrinsic part of what you're writing and it's natural, I don't see any reason to avoid it. But yes, Indian writers are uncomfortable because of this reason for writing sex scenes. I know some authors who've had others write intimate scenes for them in their books, and that's because they are uncomfortable writing it themselves, and they have that way out that I didn't write it, I got somebody to write it because I'm so uncomfortable doing it. So, how did being a part of Right India, being one of our wonderful authors for Right India, what has it done for you? We've been talking about what it's done for our participants, but what did it do for you? Did it help you in any way?
see, I've always believed that I got published way too early. Like 21 is not an age that you should get published because you don't know what kind of a person you are or what kind of a writer will you eventually be when you're growing up, when you grow up. So I think when I wrote my first book, I wasn't well read enough. Like I was still one of the most, I used to read a lot when compared to my contemporaries who were 21, but I still think my ideas were very weak, and my linguistic capabilities were weak. So reading has become a very integral part of my life. So what I really liked about Write India is that I got to read so many stories, and there were many writers whose command over the language and character building, even in those 2,000 words, was something I would have never imagined. Something I would have never written.
Yeah, you said
So
that, and
so yeah.
I thought that was very honest of
So
you.
like
Yes.
like there were genuinely writers who wrote very good passages and paragraphs and stuff like that where I felt kind of odd that why am I judging them. Like it should not happen like this, but I've been lucky with my books that I got this opportunity to interact with all these authors, and it's been brilliant. Yes.
Good. I'm so glad that it worked for you. Now that you've grown up, as you said, I wasn't really grown up when I started writing. Now that you're grown up, do you see yourself changing your style of writing or the genre that you're writing, or even getting out of writing and doing something else, or do you just see yourself writing for the rest of your life?
I only see myself writing. Like there's nothing else that I would rather do. So this is what I used to say in my earlier book launches when I was very young, that you might hate me as a writer, but what I write even I may not like at times, but there's an unhealthy amount of pleasure I derive from writing, and there's nothing in the world I would rather do. Having said that, there's one thing that I keep doing whenever I'm reading an author, I see that what age was that author when he wrote this book. And a lot of big authors have written their first book generally after 30, like 32, 33, and then of course. So I still think that
That
I
gives you a
have
kick.
yeah, I no I no, it doesn't give me a kick. It just tells me that I still have the time to write a book that I'm going to be proud decades later. So when you ask me that have I found myself yet? No, I haven't. I just wrote my first thriller. There's sometime I would like to write a fantasy novel as well, and maybe a book which will be considered literary 30 years down the line.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's
so so yeah. So I still think I have a lot of reading to do and a lot of years to
yes. And also, there
develop.
are so many opportunities, like, divergent opportunities. Yeah, like you are into television script writing, you are into movie scripts as well. So, is any of your books being turned into a movie?
Movies is a slow business, and you have to like really crack it. And it hasn't happened as of now, but I have had a lot of meetings, and I'm hoping something will happen in the next couple of years. So yeah,
Great,
yeah.
wonderful. Wish you all the best for that, Durjoy, and thank you so much for being part of Write India exercise of the Times of India. The readers, the participants really loved you, and they sent you across so many stories, wonderful stories, and we hope you will continue to be a part of Write India.
Thank
All
you,
the
Vinita.
best
It
for
was a
this.
pleasure to be a part of this.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.